Behave yourself. I know it's hard for you.
Well, good morning, Dana. March 3rd, and the sun's shining, a beautiful day out there. I'm hoping it'll stay like that all weekend.
I don't think so.
So we'll call the meeting to order, and I think Dan knows everybody.
Yeah.
And he's got a proposal to chat a little bit about, come back with a more complete proposal after we come back from town meeting break. So on the electronic fencing issue that Richie has brought it up several times, and I thought it might be good to have you folks go home with those thoughts about what you think about this, and if you run into people over the break that have like organic, that pasture their cows and have paddocks, people that have sheep or goats that they pasture. It might be good to chat with them in regards to this issue, to see what they think. And so Dan, we'll turn it over to you to run through your I guess preliminary proposal and go from there.
I gotta figure out how to do this one. We practiced, that was our mistake. So I
It's always a
Is
mistake.
it still open?
find where the share screen is.
You've got an IT specialist right next to you.
Yeah, right. No, you really don't. Share screen? No, he's a farmer.
Do you need
He's
that?
got 5 chickens. What do you think?
Here.
Haven't taken that, or you lost one, she said.
I lost 2.
Lost two.
Oh.
Yeah, he's down to 10.
But the foxes have.
So a little bit like livestock, you get down under.
Doesn't count, right, right.
And you're not, well, you get down under 8, you're
I'm
done.
done.
Aw.
They were good hens.
You gotta have at least 8 chickens to be called a
Chicken farm.
rancher.
It should be
Yeah.
Should be right here.
at the Zoom meeting. Okay. Let me see if we're still on.
Yeah, that's what I think I'm not still on.
You're on. Oh, but you're not. Let's see.
Why don't
Oh, wait, no, you're on and you still have, I'm gonna remake you co-host just to see if that helps. That should possibly.
So how many towns do you try to go to the town meetings or?
Oh, I'm here back tomorrow morning,
Down here.
Yeah.
and then I go to that.
Gotta do this
Monday
I
night,
think.
because there's a couple that conflict.
Did you push share screen?
Nah, we're good.
And I went to Western last night, they just had an information meeting, but I zoomed into that one, so.
Anybody can show up.
Yeah. Well, mostly on Zoom.
Oh,
Your sound is still on?
I was a moderator at the Union High School meeting, and we used to always have 500, 600 people show up. And this one guy
You disabled.
decided that it would be better to do Australian voting on it. Because that meeting, you would vote. And, they'd explain the whole budget. And you could ask questions and ask your vote.
Yeah.
And they went to the Australian balloting system. They have information meetings like.
Yeah.
And might get
Start your
Yeah,
share.
yeah.
Kill that.
It does, yeah, that's what happens in Bennington now too,
He went across.
the night before, there might be 25 people, 30 people, the next day is going to Castro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Get out of that.
Yeah.
To
being the
your
moderator,
screen.
I had a
When you wanna
pretty good
share,
idea
go
what
to
was
this.
gonna happen and I explained to people.
Here,
You
here,
can.
and how do we get to share screen? That's back to where we
I
were.
see what you're saying.
People right in the dark, because people aren't gonna come to a public information.
You are sharing screen now.
Sure enough.
It's good.
Okay,
That happens. Are you ready, Mr. Smith?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I gotta figure out the echo.
Maybe just mute it.
That's your, yeah, you stay right there. So
It's dangerous. Somehow I get-
We just want to mute it, right?
Yeah.
Answering campaigns, yeah. Where would his view be?
Gotta fence that.
We're gonna fence that rock off.
I
don't see his. Oh, here it is, right there. Doesn't look like. I got it.
It's looking at the top bar.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah.
Done? Oh, it's still not doing it.
How about it in that?
This one?
Yep.
Oh, there we go. Let's try this one. How's that?
See, it was muted.
when it is.
Yeah, I think it's 25.
So if you set this electric zone up right
Yeah.
along the edge of the brook.
Yeah.
How close would the animals get to it?
Yeah.
Can you adjust that?
Yeah,
so
so just let me do my back and then we'll get to how the thing actually works.
So can I just ask, you, for your purposes, small would be 99 and under, or?
It's like really 200, that 200 cow dairy, but also you gotta count for the 500 cow dairies. You know, where you really got the land base to do a efficient 500 cow dairy. So 200 and under main, but account for some of the MFO up to that. Yeah, thank you, that's a good question. So just a little bit of build out. Up top on the left, that's the idea. We're looking for ag tech tools that do farm management and performance. And then, you know, the Institute is a think tank, so we're doing the research and development. So I did the research to figure out geofencing is the way to go. I'm trying to get to the point where I'm doing it in a collaborative way with working farms, trying to develop a group of up to 20 odd farms that'll work with me to do a back and forth research and development. You know, and then I get to the academic institutions to do academic research. So, you know, we're in the seed phase to do R&D on farm and academic as a think tank. And then in addition, I'm trying to build out a financial support program for the farms. So for this pilot, the Institute is buying the collars from the company. The Institute will own the collars. So the farmers have no risk.
For lending that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm basically giving them to the farms for a year, and at the end of the year, if they want to buy them, then I'm working on a financing so that I can get low interest loans for them to purchase it. So that's in development too. I don't know if you guys have heard about the new agriculture lending bank in Concord, New Hampshire. It's a really very clever, and that's his objective, is to make financing available where farm credit won't go. So I'm working with him. And then, you know, collaboration, all of the support networks, the Land Trust, NOFA, VHCB, lots of discussions going on to establish a network there. And then the education component. And as part of this particular pilot that CREA's funded, NOFA has agreed that I'm going to contract with them where they'll do one of their farm workshops once the pilot gets going. So it's an integrated program. And then on the other side of the equation, like I said, we're after soil health, water quality, carbon capture, and then energy efficiency. So there are ag tech tools to promote, to reduce carbon footprint by efficiency and conservation. So there's a farm out in California that has gone completely electric. It's quite remarkable what they're doing. So there's there's places around the country, and I'm trying to become a think tank for that here in Vermont. It's not to advocate so much for farm viability. It's to promote the use of ag tech tools, and then the advocacy groups can use the Institute as a think tank. And then the last is, as I said before, is to, and I don't even know, goal one is to come up with where you have measurable outcomes. And clearly in the carbon capture world, that's the key piece. One of the people that's given me some money, that's her main concern, is to be able to identify and document tools. The interesting thing about this particular pilot is you're using your phone to manage your cows. So can you use your phone at the same time to manage the data? So and I'm working with NoFence to see if we can integrate those two functions. So that's the Institute backdrop. So to get into just one more pitch for, I don't think enough attention gets paid to how much small farms, and particularly dairy farms, are stewards of the land base, right? That's what everybody says, steward. You aggregate the number of acres in both Pennsylvania and New York, dairying is number one. So the primary, if you aggregate them, that's the total, not just the small farms, is 13 million acres. And in Vermont, it's 10% of the whole land base is dairy farms. Now I think it's 20, and small farms are half. So it's a big chunk, you know, if we can figure out a way to aggregate the land base and have strategies that account for that. And I'm not the only one that's thinking about this, but I highlight this because that is part of what's driving what we're trying to do is to get it. Okay, so that's the background of what I'm trying to do. I went after the first tool that you're looking for: established, in use, early stage, in development in the technology world. You know, your early stage is where the research and development and investment can have the biggest return. The established, less return to the investors, but less risk. So I'm looking for both in the bigger picture. And then I went after one that was kind of in the middle, and I got lucky that there is one, which is this virtual fencing. It's, as you'll see from No Fence's website in a minute, they've been in business for about 10 years, I think. They're showing 3,200 farms and a lot of animals. So it's really established in Europe. It's not in an early stage in Europe. It is in early stage here in the States. Raise your hand if you even heard of it before Richie went. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not totally sure, but I'm pretty sure that this is the first pilot in the state of Vermont.
The only little thing I am hearing is, I guess they also are getting this going for pets too. So your dog, have the satellite, have this thing on, bring your dog to, somebody else's house, kind of thing.
So instead of having a wire in the ground, it's virtual. Yeah. And I've done we're going on the farms this spring. We've done the training with the 2 farms. And the question comes up that the animals, particularly herd like sheep and goats, have herd dogs. So can you use the same collar system and the answer is no. So they have to team with your company that's doing dogs and then sync them up.
Interesting.
So we're in the pilot phase really, but that I think that's an important piece of this. So that's the I found the technology. As I said before, the gist of it is to improve rotational grazing by replacing the posts and wires. My funding, what I've got, as I said before, is from Strolling and Littleac, and I've got a grant to apply for. I also apply for 2 federal grants and a prior DBIC grant. So this thing's been chewed over quite a bit to get to where we are.
DBIC.
Sorry, that's the Innovation Center.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm with you on acronyms, but that's. So I'm 2/3 of the way to actually getting on. I'm 75% to getting on the farm. We did the training a couple of weeks ago with No Fence, and the collars are coming to my office in a couple of weeks, and then the animals go on pasture in May, and the fences will the cows will get their collars in May, and we'll be up and running. So a year and a half. It's pretty exciting to get to this point. No Fence, NOFA, as I said, key pieces. I've retained Kimberly Hagan, who's a retired extension service rotational grazing specialist, to do the tech work. So she's providing financial support. She's providing the technical support. So she'll work with the farmers, both for the collaring and for the rotational grazing adaptation to the collaring. And I'm in the backdrop with, doing the data management, financial operation, and stewarding the whole process. If I get the grant from DBIC, then Heather Darby comes in the picture. Heather will bring extension into the process, so we get a little more developed data management, and she'd be back up for technical. She wouldn't be doing too much technical. That's what Kimberly's going to do. But we'll broaden out from 2 farms to 5 farms and get the extension service into the process. And then NOFA comes into the picture early on. If I get the DBIC grant, then I got 2 farms in Maine, and then I get MOFA, the Maine organic group, into the picture too. So the Innovation Center is regional. So So we'll have a 2-state pilot, and Maine's very innovative, so, and I do a lot of work with them, so that would be, I think, a big improvement if I could get that DBIC grant.
What is that?
The DBIC, yeah, that's the Innovation Center, Dairy Business Innovation Center
Oh,
in the agency, that's what Laura is doing. So I put one grant in last fall, I got turned down, because it's so hard to get grants. I've done political, not like you guys run for office, but politics to do advocacy work for the Dairy Compact. I've done a couple different energy efficiency projects as an entrepreneur, raised money from venture capitalists, and now I'm in the grant and foundation fundraising business, and it isn't easy. It isn't easy, you know. But it does make you sharpen up what you're doing, and trees back. So I'm underway, but I'm 1 for 2 with the Dairy Innovation Center. I mean, I'm 0 for 1, but I got 1 more in there. Hopefully I'll end up 1 for 2. Hopefully.
So Dan, does anyone else except Laura from the agency kind of aware of this? Is this on their landscape at all?
That's an interesting question. So the first round of grants was last fall.
Yep.
And that was to do innovation grant work with a group of grant-supported work with a group of dairy farms. So I put in a grant out, and just in general, no, type of technology or anything like that, for selling products or improving your farm management. It was wide open. So I put in my pilot for geofencing. That was what the technology I was going to start, and got turned down. So then they put out another grant application and said, we want to do this for grants to farms directly or service agents for technologies. And the number 1 technology on their itemized list, geofencing. So did they know about it before, or?
Yeah, or did you clue them in?
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that. And we'll find out what happens. I mean, maybe somebody else will get a grant and I won't, It's a tough world, and, then you die, so.
Yeah, it would be kind of bad if the agency got the grant. I mean, she works for the agency, and they don't have too many forward-thinking projects, so I've ever run into that. That's my personal observation.
I've learned, you learn about yourself doing this type of work, right? And I've learned that I was a good competitive athlete. I'm a terribly competitive public policy person. I just don't know how to do that. And so I just do the best I can, and hopefully I'll get a grant. That's all I can do. And if the agency ends up with it, at least virtual fencing will come to the landscape. And okay, so now let's if I can do this. So this is No Fence's their website. It's a Norwegian company, and if you just Google No Fence, it'll come right up.
I've showed most of the room.
Yeah. Sorry?
I've showed most
Oh,
of the room.
Have you showed this? Oh, on their phones. Okay. But if I'm doing what you've already done my PR.
No, you keep going.
Okay. All right.
So there you are on the phone, just extending that out.
You're just, you're in your office. You don't even have to be there. You're in your office.
You could be sitting on the beach someplace.
Yeah, put your fence up for the chicken.
So
That's where the chickens are. That's where the chickens are.
A really tiny column.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
So do they get, may I just jump in and ask a quick question?
As long as it's
Good.
not a dumb one.
I'm good for dumb questions. I'm good for dumb
So do the cows get sort of used to that area, all right? And then
Yeah.
you extend it out. How do you sort of let them know, hey, guys, you're smart. Now this is
Okay.
open also.
Great question. So in the training video,
Yeah.
it starts with this, but you've got your perimeter fence,
Yeah.
your existing perimeter fence for the training. So I don't know how to stop that, but if, like right there, you got a
Yeah.
square.
Yeah,
You do your perimeter fence so that on 3 sides, this is extended out, and on
Yeah.
the 4th side, you're on the inside of the perimeter fence.
Okay.
And then you
Okay.
train them to that, and it takes a couple days, and you train them.
okay,
And they're trained to an auditory signal first and then a
Right.
shot.
yeah,
And the auditory signal increases in intensity, pitch, and sound as they get closer to the boundary.
yeah,
And that's calibrated to if they're running versus walking. It's pretty cool.
that's interesting.
So they get trained, and apparently, that's the key. So once they get the idea, so they're gonna end up, likely when you move the fence, chances are, where's that next thing? This deal, where she got zapped,
Right.
maybe when you've moved the line, that's part of what's gonna happen.
After she gets zapped once,
She
they get
knows.
used, they get trained by the sound. So they'll go until they hear the sound and then.
Yeah.
And as the fence moves, because the beauty of this is when you put together a plan. There's a present program in the ag department now to build fences, and you have you're forced to do rotational grazing through it for the good of the soils. And the beauty of this is you don't have to go in and put up that in between rotational, which is terribly labor
Yeah,
intensive
yeah.
to move cattle and have to put up a little fence every time you move along.
Yeah.
This you just move them along in it, and they get trained by the
get
sound. And
trained
once
by the
they,
sound.
once they recognize the sound, then they don't get zapped anymore.
Right.
And then
But
they-
the
they
first
really
time
don't
out,
care
they
where-
get zapped.
They don't care where the new line is.
Yeah.
But the analogy that I have used with the company to see if it works, I run some beef cows. And when you go between 2 pastures and you open up the gate.
Yeah.
There's always a few cows that catch on pretty quick. Gates
Okay.
open, I
Yeah.
can go through.
Yeah.
And there's a couple that take a while.
Yeah.
They either follow the ones going through or they figure it out, And I think it'll be similar.
It's similar, interesting, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
You always have a leader when you have a bucket of grain.
Yeah, boy.
So on this particular field, they've been grazing within the zone.
Yeah.
Can you move the fence behind them up so they aren't treading on that same ground? They
Absolutely.
just,
Absolutely. So they're moving the front part, right? You can move it anywhere you want. You don't even have to have a fixed line. You can move it from there to where the circles are. And then you have to move the animals, obviously.
yeah.
But-
But move them to the new grass,
Yeah.
but protect where they just came from, without them over treading it.
That's the whole idea. That's the whole idea. You can't use them for laneways, so you're rotational grazing within a field.
Yeah.
But it's not really designed for pathways. That's the only thing it's not designed for. So it's a field-based system where you get your animals out of pasture for a period of time.
The other issue is how do you collect, you had carbon capture up there?
Yeah.
And how does this fencing affect that?
Okay, can I just do the technology?
Oh, you got some more?
Well, just a little bit more. So the basic idea, you download from the satellite, the boundary. That sets the boundary. The animal has a collar that takes that signal. That's how that registers. And in the collar is the auditory, the sound and the shot. That's in the collar. So GPS to the animal to the boundary GPS. Then, the teaching part is in there. The other part is that your phone, and I'm getting to where you want to get to. Your phone sets the boundaries. So now I've got satellite to the collar, and then I got phone to the collar. so that I'm using my phone to place the boundaries and tell the animals where to go, but I'm also using my phone to find out where the animals are. So there are the animals.
So,
So I'm sitting in my office, I don't have to go see them. I have to go see, and for me, I'll tell you, it's almost as big a deal as not having to move the fence.
Yeah.
Is to, every day when I go home, the first thing I do is, where are they? Where are they? And you always have that little danger.
and, and
It's always in the back.
if they did happen to get out
Yeah.
and they got to the woods someplace,
You can find it.
you can find them.
Oh, you could still track them in the woods?
They got the collar.
Yeah.
Get the collar.
You ever lost an animal in the woods, Bobby, and gone looking for it?
Oh my God.
Hours and,
Days.
they
Days.
hide wicked.
But to keep going, Richie, if they go over the boundary, the shock is not enough to knock them down. It's only enough to get their attention. So if a predator's after them, they have to escape. They can go, and then there's no shock or signal coming back. They can just come back in. So yeah. So
Oh,
that's,
I love that.
That's a
That they
pretty
can
good
just come back because they're herd
Yeah.
animals and most of these animals don't want to be alone anyway.
exactly. They want to come back, and then the ones that can't figure out, I broke through this way, and then they go looking for where they can't figure that out, then they go in the woods. They can just come back through. Yeah.
So on the way in, they don't get anything.
So that's why I picked the company. They're far along. We're not in the, let's go on a farm and figure all this stuff out.
I didn't realize that coming back in, they don't get shot. That's
It's good.
that's
They worked-
awesome.
They worked it out. They've got a lot of stuff worked out. Okay, so then Bobby, to your point, I'm down here managing, right? So the question is, as part of it, can we add a program so that, and we asked him, when there was a question, is it only in the moment you know where they are? Or is there a record of where they've been? And there's actually a record of where they've been. So you move them, and then you can see, okay, my objective is to put them on the best grass. And I'll see if they go to the best grass, see how long they stay. And then I can start to monitor forage improvement by seeing where they've been. So then similarly, for Cree, we're trying to keep them out of the water. And to your point, so we're gonna set our, so we're gonna set our boundaries. There's a sensitive swampy area. So with a wire fence, you've got to come out, you're gonna come out, let's say it's kind of higgledy-piggledy, you're gonna come all the way out and run the line, right? Because you got to run a pretty straight line. This deal, you can modify that right to the area, right? So then I put the animals on, I'll see how close they came to the areas. We can monitor that and then move the fence to get really so it works the best, so I can work with the animals and the fencing to do that. So then the question is, with all of that information, can we also say, okay, there's science that says animals that are on pasture for 2 days and then moved, that grass, I'm not sure 2 days is right, but I think that's the right number. That's how you crop for the health, and then the grass will come back. Then you want to move them to allow the grass to come back. So I want to get to the point, that's not in the no-fence system. That's in extension and what Kimberly has done. So can we sync those up so that the data of where the animals have been translates directly, so you don't have to take that data and do a whole additional spreadsheet? Can we sync those two? I would assume you get the tech folks together. Why not? It's just data management. So then you get to the next stage that, it's documented that nutrients absorb into the plants and the soil better with better rotational grazing. Carbon is one of the nutrients that absorbs better. So to what extent how much carbon is actually getting sequestered in that process? That's where the science is in development. And that's where we're really in the early stage.
So it would seem, because the Ag Department does have a program, and it's called the Vermont Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. And we give out grants to build fences now, all based on rotational grazing, which the university and extension, you have to have a plan for your rotational grazing to get money for the fences out of that program. Now, it would seem that if this all works in pilots, that the incorporation of all of that together might be,
That's the game.
because it's all about improving and
So what I'm trying to do is get the institute established, just ag tech, but ag tech for these purposes, and then have collaborative relationship with the agencies, organizations that are doing the different pieces that sink in to the institute and its support. So if I can get established to do that, and I'm not trying to, replicate or anything else. I'm just trying to say, this is the focus to agritech, to play into what you're saying. So the agency's been doing post and wire fencing for that purpose. Well, here's an innovative technology that we can integrate in as a new way to do what you've been doing, and let's figure out how to get the two working together. And that's the bigger.
And how, I think you'd have to take a given plot of land and figure out, like, how much does it cost to fence the perimeter, and then fence each paddock.
Yeah.
And then whatever that costs, come back and compare it against this
Exactly, yeah.
electronic.
That's the basic, that you're back to
Did
basic.
you do that
Yeah.
in the pilot?
That's the basic that I talked to Cree about, so Cree, just, it's like what Richie and I and carbon capture is like the car with a catalytic converter. We get to that point where we're running good. But in the beginning, we got to figure out, does this make sense financially? Is it going to save the farm money? And that's where I started with Cree. Just what you said, we got to compare cost over time. First, you got to see if it actually works. We'll keep the cows from ending up in the woods. That's question one, right? And question two is the pasture utilization for forage better? It should, but we've got to test that. And then for Cree, water quality, and then four is cost, comparative cost. So that's the start. That's the start with the two farms. And, it's farm management. The beef cow farm, he thinks that, to Richie's point, moving actively rotational grazing could save 700 hours a year. It's a lot of hours.
Hours, 700?
Because he goes out 3 times a day during the grazing season, and with him and his assistant to move the fences 3 times a day. And he has to go from the farm to the field. So if he's sitting in his office, boop, boop, done. If it's that, I'm old. Nothing, if something's too good to be true, so that I have that in the back of my mind. So we'll see.
Have you identified the farms already that are gonna try this out?
Yeah, I have 2 farms. I got to deal with 2 farms. I got to deal with 2 farms. Gone with Cree. We're going. We're starting in the spring. Bought the collars. They're going. I've done the training.
And where are they?
One's in Hardwick, one's in Wells. Beef farm in Hardwick, dairy in Wells. If I get the
Wells,
DVIC,
Vermont?
if I get the DVIC grant, 3rd dairy farm in Vermont, and 2 farms in for 5.
What's the cost of collars again?
The cattle collars are $300 a piece. And they should be good for, they're saying 5 years. And then there's a subscription cost for the software.
Yeah.
I say it's like they sell you the razor and the blades, and then they're selling you the blades.
Oh, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
The other issue, a lot of organic cows, do they already have collars where they get hooked when they, with the chain when they come in? So,
Yes.
so are these collars So can they wear a singular collar and also use it as a tie collar in the barn, or do you know?
So these animals are just out on pasture, so that is used
Oh,
not.
they aren't dairy,
But there's, the questions constantly come up. You've got your collars for feeding, right? And can you have two collars? The answer is yes, but why not combine the two into one? And that'll happen, that'll happen. So there's no reason to have two collars. The two companies will have to get together to, coordinate one collar instead of two. So we're in the pilot.
And how expensive is like sheep and goats?
The sheep and goats are $100 less a piece, same size for those two. I don't know if same size, but same cost. So that's I think the last piece of this is that so in doing the discussion and the work, where I am, we go from 2 dairy farms to 2 cattle farms to 5 cattle farms. I got that scoped out, got farms in agreement, and they're great farms. They're really good farms. I know them, and so that'll be great. If I can get from 2 to 5, I'll have a pretty good working 5 farm pilot for cattle. I'd like to get a few more, but 5, that's pretty good. Then next up is goats and sheep. Works, they're field animals, so you could just do pasturing of goats and sheep. But in addition to that, it's whether you can use the animals for maintenance. So the cattle farmer, the beef farmer in Hardwick has got a arrangement with a friend of his who lives in Maine who has a solar array. And he's farming out his sheep to his friend for the summer to manage the solar array. And they'll have a temporary fence. So this would replace the temporary fence. So he and I are in negotiation to see if we can put together a deal, a 3-way deal to do that. So I'd like to do a pilot of that if I can. It seems a pretty straightforward application of this. And, you have to have the whole infrastructure, obviously. You need 1 bar cellular for this to work. So, solar system, you should have that.
Can I just jump?
Sure.
What is the is there a downside to all of this? Technology wise, or, it's a little expensive, but it seems like it's worth it. So what?
We'll see. That's,
Yeah.
I think that's downsized.
It's
by
just
one, the cost is prohibitive.
right.
Well, the question is, it seems expensive, but compared to what?
Right.
I just put up fencing, 4-strand electric fence for about 30 acres of land.
Yeah.
That me and my partner had 20 some odd cows on this past year. And we spent around 25,000 for
Wow.
the 30 acres.
Yeah.
So if I could go on and avoid, and we now have to put a single line fence for rotational grazing, and we have to move that periodically all the way through. As we move that for the rotational grazing, we have to figure out water, we have to, because you can't leave animals without, so there's whole things you have to figure out. But compared to what you're gotta compare this to is that.
Well, no, actually, that wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking more the technology side, satellite.
No,
I just don't know,
Yeah.
this goes dead sometimes.
Right, so
What happens? in
Key
terms
point,
of the
key
other
point. So.
I was only
the sa-
referring to the cost side.
The satellite, doesn't go down, right?
Yeah.
So, and that was, this is the threshold question I had, having lived with, it goes down and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
So the satellite to the perimeter, to the boundaries, to the animal, doesn't go down. what might go down if your phone goes down, you won't know where they are.
Okay,
And you won't know,
okay,
you won't be able to move them. But they're still,
they're still there. Okay,
so that downside's not, that one
that's
is,
good. That's really good.
yeah, that was
So that's,
had to have that or I would do.
Yeah.
that's
I'm with you all the
permanent.
way. Yeah. You know, unless the satellite falls out of the sky.
Right.
But, you know, I think that is an issue. You're going away from people to technology, you know, but that's the downside of technology.
See,
My concern, the other is, I don't want to put people out of business. I'm not interested in technology replacing people.
well.
This one doesn't really do
Richie,
that.
there's no way Richie should be without a job moving this fence. I agree with you 100%. But like at home, on the trucks, Eric can go on his phone and he can tell you where each truck is.
Yeah.
Within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So,
was talking with him the other day and he said, he said there was a pickup running around up in our, we got a pretty big yard. He said there was a pickup up in there running around and went over in by the trailers and looking everything all over. He said, you didn't ask somebody to go up and look at something, did you? No. He said, well, it was a black Dodge Ram 250 or whatever, and I mean, because we got cameras and that they went to his phone and he can punch in there and like during the week he can punch in, check the inside the garage and all that stuff. It's really
So-
quite a,
so that's the upside, you know. I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
improved. And I think
So
if the downside is it's too expensive, you know, as a
I
technological,
just
it adds
say,
cost rather
say
than
to you about,
reduces cost.
we don't have enough farm labor as it is.
I mean, that's, yeah. Yeah, but you don't
If
want
you
to,
can find me the people to do the work, it's a miracle.
so I'm looking for technologies that can enhance the efficiency of the people we have to keep them able to stay in farm.
yeah,
But we don't want, robotics are right on, they push milkers out, but if you don't have anybody to milk anyway, you're not pushing anybody out, But this one isn't doing that at all. This is just giving us an
saving
operator,
time.
to do something.
to
Well,
do
This
other
one,
work.
this one,
And particularly small
Checks all the
family
boxes.
farms. Basically what they've done is they caved back in on all of their family because they can't afford the labor. So how do we,
so that's what, Roger and I are doing this, and that's the driving force for a smaller farm operation that is family-based and family labor and working 65 hours. If, get back to a reasonable time commitment and improve financial performance, that's the goal. That's the goal.
So I just did quick math. If you had 200 cows, and each cow is 300, that's investment of 60 grand. And you're just telling us that 25 just pays for a fence. How long does that fence last? And you can do it on the back of a napkin and probably figure out whether you even should be talking about it. And it seems like it's probably on, because this is, how long did you said the collars are 5 years?
The company has tested them for 5 years, and they're I think they're warranted for 2. They're representing they're good for 5 years, but they think they're good for 10 years. But it depends if you've got feeders and they're banging into feeders, so we gotta see.
and, so it's the cost, the infrastructure cost and all of that, and the labor cost.
Labor on top of it.
And labor on top of that, I've got a really good fence up there. We put it up last year, it's 4 strand, it's a great fence. I'm probably gonna get 15 to 20 years with some maintenance in the meantime. But to do the rotational grazing as they want, for all the environmental reasons, I have to go in there every single few days and I have to move them.
Right.
And I have to move them around. And then I have to you have to have water tanks and all of that for each. I can see where if I had something like this, it's a lot easier to move around the water tanks in,
Yeah.
because a lot of times this fence, you follow the lane.
So,
So if I could just say, you know, in addition to solar, right away for utilities, and I've got a committed letter of support to explore this from Washington Electric Co-op. I think he's in. I think Lewis is in. We met with
Andrew,
thank you, Andrew from Vermont Electric Co-op. They're very intrigued. She said she'd give me a letter. So I think, you know, to expand this out, I think there's a broader public interest question here. You know, if you can do right away maintenance with goats, you don't need to spray.
Yeah.
yeah,
And whether it's cost effective, you know, that's what I'd like to pilot and see. You know, Bobby and I have talked about, I've been skiing my whole life and I'm, you know, old enough to ski without edges and with bear trap bindings. And I think they weren't using sheep to graze the ski slopes, but I heard about it, you know, that they did that. And they used to, the cattle used to graze the fairways on golf courses. So, you know, golf course, no public interest there. Ski slopes for Vermont, public interest there. And solar, clear public interest. And then, you know, goats for, I've got my share of weeds on my fields that I don't want to spray. I don't want to do it. And I can't pick them. I'm too old. My knees don't work. I can't do that. So, you know, be nice to see if it worked for that. So, you know, I'd like to see the build out of this just beyond cattle, you know, public interest there. So you guys asked me to come in and do this. I'm happy to come in and ask you for money. If I do that, I got to register as a lobby. So if you want me to do that, I'll do it. You know, if you want to.
just said, my partner just texted and said, how many days did we spend weed whacking on that electric fence? And this, you would have to weed whack around with an electric fence in it.
3, 5 goats, 4 days for an acre. Clear the, so you sweep
how
around.
many?
4 days. Yeah. 5 goats, which is, and I have to say, Lewis said to me, have you ever heard of a goat that's managed? The answer is no. So whether,
So
whether this can actually work,
I've got
show me. But
I've got
if it does, it'd be great.
a brook going down through the farm, and it's got knotweed in it.
Oh,
And they want me to spray a herbicide on the brook for that knotweed. And it's the accepted practice right now. I, for the life of me, think that, and it's a steep bank, the goats would love it. And if I can put a few goats in there and you get rid of the knotweed, it seems to me like it would be, I don't see where the downside is.
And it's a day, you know, it's a day,
Right.
that would be a day. So you're gonna have a herd of goats that you can move around, they're trained to the fence, you know. Seems like a business, I don't know. Lewis is game to do this summer. He and I figured out their mileage, got to shape. So, and No Fence is willing to, they've got a limited number of collars. I think they give us a collar. So I'm halfway there to a pilot for goats. So right away. But I got to get the fund.
No, Vermont Electric's got 4,000 miles of lines.
20,000.
4,000.
Oh, 4,
I
yeah.
think Washington Electric has 3.
Wow.
They're on a 10-year plan. They maintain, Washington Electric doesn't spray. So the goats we could put it right on in the summer.
It's all hand stuff.
Vermont Electric's is a 5 to 7
But plan, yeah,
rotation.
yeah. So likely some of their land they haven't sprayed in a while, might be able to get on there. So, you know, I'm game, so.
Sure. When one of these animals escapes the fence, do you as the farmer in your office get a little notice?
Yes.
Okay, because that's
Good
important to
question.
me that
Yeah.
you would know that Bessie escaped,
Yeah, yeah.
just so you know to, you know, because you're busy doing other stuff, right?
So you're
Okay.
monitoring where they are.
Right,
And part of the monitoring is you get,
updates, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
and the big question, follow-up, the question, a lot of, there were 25 farmers on the training. And half of them, main concern was, okay, my animals are out on the field. Is the battery gonna work? They're rechargeable batteries. I left that out. It's pretty cool. It's part of the reason I did this. You can recharge them, by plugging into the wall. So I have to buy chargers and extra batteries, like your drill. But they also have solar on the tops, which I'm big.
They have solar on there?
Oh, so in the summer, you don't have to necessarily take the collar off.
So how, again, it sounds too good to be true, right? So, and I have to say, it's the only thing that they hedged on is that if you have, and this would be Brian's concern, if you have questionable cell service that goes in and out, you're going to get a monitor. You'll be told that you don't know where your animals are because your cell service. So you're going to get beeped, and that drains the batteries on the collars. So it seems that the cost to the batteries, the drainage cost, is not the animals going in and out, it's your cell service. But then you're gonna have to bring your animals back in to take the batteries out to put the new batteries in, and that's cumbersome. You gotta put your animals in.
Really, the question really for me is, look how fast this technology is moving. And if we're moving in this, how much cheaper will those collars be 10 years from today? Because it's all moving.
Well, and we have to make sure we have decent cell service. And then, then the size of the battery will go down, the collar will go down, the cost of that, or we have decent cell service.
How often do you normally have to charge a collar?
If you
Is it
had.
weekly, or we talking monthly, or every day?
If you have good cell service so that that's not happening, it's good for the whole grazing season. You won't have to charge them.
Wow.
That'd be,
Once for the season. It sounds like you may have to replace them once a season. So you're gonna have to bring your animals in, which is a labor cost. That's a big labor cost. And, put them in the containment and change out the collars. That's gonna be a downside. That's gonna be a downside.
but, you have to take the entire collar off to charge it.
Take the battery to replace the battery. It's like you got a battery drill. You have a battery drill.
Yeah.
So you disconnect the battery, put your second one in off to charge it. You can't do that. Well, I believe you have to take the collar off to do that. But either way, you've got to contain the animal.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
that's the labor expense.
And I don't know if you want to talk about it, but if is there any type of legislation that you would need, or is it mainly like a grant of some type to?
Yeah, this is your world. It's my old world, but I don't see legislation. I think the question is, how does the legislature support a C3 that's trying to do, something like this? What's the best mechanism to do that? Obviously, the funding streams that are out there are the private foundations like CREE, the government agencies, DBA, the Dairy Innovation Center is doing grants, the Working Lands folks are doing grants. So I'm in those buckets. There's federal funding as well. So whether the legislature can support this either indirectly through one of those and provide some targeted money, or target the money to a specific project that I would do. I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if the legislature can directly fund a 501c3. I don't know the answer.
Richie could probably check that out with.
It's not like we haven't done innovative things to.
I think we would need some type of plan of what it was gonna be used for, and the purpose of it, and what the results, what would come back from the review or the
Okay.
study.
Well, and I'm happy to do a follow-up, just as sort of the introduction, and I'm happy to do exactly that and more. specific, with Washington Electric for X miles of right of way goes, how many goes, how long it will take, and what our expected outcomes are. And hopefully with Lewis, he seems very excited. We could do some comparative costs, like you're saying, you should be able to, 2 columns on a spreadsheet, have a general sense of what the cost savings.
Vermont Electric has at least 3 community solar projects
Yeah, so,
that are members purchase solar panels in each. There's a huge project in Alberg that that the co-op decided and worked with developers to do that. I would think that
so that's what so why don't I can do goats, right away, Washington Electric, sheep, solar arrays, Vermont Electric, and cost it out. If you'd like me to do that, I'm happy to.
But I wonder if they're gonna be willing to not hire whoever they normally hire to do this without knowing whether this will work.
Oh, that's the
Yeah,
age-old
and-
challenge of new technology, right? That's,
Yeah, I
Lewis's
mean,
game, I think Lewis's game. He talked to his board. I got, sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you get really unlucky. The day I talked to him, he had board meetings, so he ran by his board on their new business and they're all excited and I got a letter that afternoon, so I think he'd be willing, Bobby. And Andrea seemed pretty
I
charged up
think if
too,
we can,
so.
but if
present them to both of them, I think there's interest.
I think if you can show savings, Bobby, so that there's risk reward, what's the risk of doing this?
well,
What's the
and,
potential reward? So,
well, there isn't much of a risk to the board except for it not working.
Right.
And then they've gotta hire the people to come in and chase
Clean up.
the goats or chase the
Yeah.
sheep.
Yeah.
Um,
I shoot the goats,
so I,
not to show my body.
but the tail end of this, is that when you get done the summer or the season, you've got lamb meat, if you didn't want to winter the lamb, you'd have food, meat to sell as well. And
Well, it seems to me that it's a 3-way project. You've got Washington, Vermont Electric Co-op, and the solar array. The Institute is the provider, and then the sheep farm, So the sheep farmer is using the solar arrays as pasture, right? So that's their benefit to them. They've got pasture to raise the sheep for whatever they're raising the sheep for.
see, and how many solar arrays there? 3, 2
Yep.
single?
They have 3 for sure.
See,
They are community solar that are sold to members of the company.
And it's like 5 goats an acre, 3 sheep acres. That's
3 sheep to an acre?
Yeah.
That's it?
it.
That was small. I didn't figure 3 sheep would do me for the whole season.
Correct. It's 2 cows to an acre.
Yeah. The sheep eat a lot.
So for a ski slope, it's not a retreat,
Yeah.
That one is a little farther out, but it's really kind of, because you look at a well-managed ski trail in summer, that's what it is, grass. Having to trim that grass, is a lot of labor.
A
On
huge
the hill and steep.
I know Jay imports foreigners they come to
Yeah.
and
You
stay.
can't bowl some of that slope, no way, so.
Well, they're up there by hand
Yeah.
with weed whackers.
Yeah. So,
And
that's a.
and the goats eat a lot of woody materials. A huge portion of the budget for a utility company is cutting the brush and cutting the trees.
Absolutely.
And most utility companies are behind on all of that maintenance, because that's the first place in the budget that you cut back.
Well, with the powers going out, they've got, I don't know, you guys, but the utility right away, line lane, it's get opened up. And it's just, they go in there with the chainsaws, or I would think if the goats could keep the underbrush down in a more sort of more sustainable way.
You could probably drop that rotation from 10 years down by quite a lot of, if you.
You'd probably not have to do that clear cut.
Right.
Erosion, remediation.
Yeah. So,
So you don't know if the utilities would pay anything to try it. And that's what you want to do, is do a few pilots, and then you'd be able to, they'd be able to be on their own. Somebody would, once they bought the collars and
Yeah.
owned the animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the game is clearly, Lewis, all excited. And I teased up the idea of putting a little money in the pot, and whoop, it backs up. So, that's where the risk goes up to them. If it doesn't work, they've lost money. If it doesn't work and they haven't put money in, they've lost some staff time. And like you said, they have to go back in and clean up, and maybe the cost is a little higher.
So
So if we can
these
front the
pilots,
money,
to do the pilots, and then you'd either know for sure if it's gonna work or not work.
right,
And if it did work,
Yeah.
then they'd probably be willing to,
Yeah.
Be on their own and do it, but it's hard to sell something if you
Yeah.
don't know
and
it's.
same with farms, to be able to say, I own the collars for a year, you have no risk. And if it works, then you can buy the collars.
Certainly,
So,
if they get hooked on, they do a pilot, they see it works, and they figure out how they can manage it into their rotation. The utility companies spend a huge amount of money on tree cutting and it's a cost to Washington Electric
absolutely.
to not use herbicides versus other companies that do.
Then the additional, because of where we are, no fence is 3 months, no risk to me. So I have 3 months to pull the plug, I don't have to pay anything. So I think with the utility, that's probably, 3 months is probably enough time to see.
Yeah.
If this is really and pull the plug on it, and cut our losses some. So I think it'll work, and I also think that it's reasonable for some public money and some private money. So, I think if I get the grant, it makes it easier to find a foundation willing to give money. And if the legislature were willing to kick in some money, that would certainly encourage the Crees of the world to put up some money too. So there's a clear public interest in that. If you can keep utilities from spraying, there's a public interest in that.
So, do you have any type of timetable to figure out the grant deal? How much, how much would be helpful from the state? I mean, you can do projections on what you have, where you've applied for grants.
Yeah.
But, and to figure out what you need, what they're gonna do, and then what's left.
Yeah, I'll come in and, we can go over that.
couple
You
of-
tell me when you want me to come in, and I'll figure out. The bigger, if your, the fiscal year, July 1, right, the money would be available. So getting into the summer season, I talked with Lewis about that a little bit. It's a little tight, but we could at least get going this summer. I've talked to No Fence. They have a priority list. I'm on the priority list. They're trying to support what I'm doing. So in the bigger picture, it's tight, but I think we could get something going this summer if we get some money in the pipeline.
Yeah, that would be good, because you got summer right up through the fall.
Right.
You know,
And we missed the front end.
Yeah.
Missed June and a little bit of May, but that's a little bit of time.
well, maybe, we're gone next week. Could either be 2 to 3 weeks out.
Okay.
Uh,
If you and Linda can keep me posted.
Yeah, Linda will,
Okay.
we should try one of them callers, we should try it here with Richie, so I could keep track of him where he is.
Make the music like Led Zeppelin.
You go outside the committee room, boy, you're gonna get zapped.
I'd be the little boat right there.
Yeah. Call
Get started out.
No, that looks good there.
It would seem to me that if the company knew that, because the budget will be passed in May, if the company knows that you've got money that's committed from the state in May, most places wait 30 days, will wait 30 days for their money.
John, I think that's a great point, and with no offense, with the 3-month advance, we could take the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get started.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
it's in and passed and signed
Okay.
into law, then you got a pretty good guarantee that you're,
Good point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, as long as you guys don't stay here until that.
So I don't
Until the
see how
11th
you
hour.
could lose the season if you knew all of that.
It sounds good, Rich. Sounds good.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dave, for coming
Thank you.
in.
Thanks for all the time.
The other issue is on here, on the task force report, there's some minor changes that need to be done to that draft. And I'm still thinking about working on that when we come back.
Linda talked to me about Wednesday, you're thinking about?
Wednesday, Friday, here. That's
The warm point compact side.
Yeah. Well, that's good call it. Do you think that would work for you? or-
Sure. Yeah. Happy to do that. I thought I'd go through what the task force did in more detail and then figured to talk about the changes, that we had thought of and any that anybody else had from.
Yeah, I'd like to pursue that. Come back and
Okay.
the House gonna be sending us some stuff. I think they'd be trying to do their stuff they're sending us, as well as working on these other projects.
Okay.
Well, very good.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
I was telling Linda, I went to the federal order hearing outside of Nashville.
There you go.
Came home last night, came here. Wow. Just remember
What?
that.
Yes.
It was 70 degrees in Nashville,
Oh.
which is 20 degrees higher than it should be. So, sorry.
I'm headed to Florida Monday.
All right.
Yeah.
Be 80.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
More than usual, right?
My brother
So, yeah.
Yeah.
said it's been really warm.
Yes. The daffodils were out 2-3 weeks early. So.
Maybe spring is around the corner for us.
I'm gonna tap this week. I'm tapped. That's
All
running today.
Granddaughter and her husband, I think they made up toward 1,000 gallons already.
But 2 weeks ago, must have run crazy.
Pardon?
A couple weeks ago, must have really.
Yeah, they made some before that real cold snap.
Yeah,
But then after that passed by, they've been making a bunch more.
still. So it's like a really extended season.
Well,
I took it out. I didn't- I just-
so you're on tap just this week?
When you get going.
You better, because we're supposed to get a foot of snow tonight. That tapping will go a little slow and put a new snow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would just say to you, one of the things that, for me and my partner did is that your pilot would produce the numbers for us to be able to compare existing fence around. We're figuring that, if we figure our fences for 20 years, we figure the infrastructure is $50 to $60 an animal over a
Okay.
20-year period.
Okay,
And
that includes your upfront cost plus your.
yeah,
maintenance
because
costs
you
over
know,
time.
you've got the batteries, you've got, you've got the shocker, you've got, you know,
Yeah.
you've got all of that.
All that.
And that's,
But how about your time, you know, every
that's,
year you have to
no,
go
this
out?
is just the infrastructure.
Okay,
This is just the capital cost.
Yeah.
It's $50 to $60
okay,
on a 20-year period.
Yeah.
Given what you've got for collars, we probably come out with a price of, for a 10-year with the collar and that stuff, you know, $35 to $40. So,
wow,
but
that's a good way to look at it.
you'll have to think about, as you do a pilot,
Yeah.
you'll have better numbers to be able to say to people, this is exactly what it will be.
That's the whole idea. And, you know, I think that's the whole idea. And to have the institute do it for a group of farms, so you have aggregated data to show farmers, that's the education piece of it. Instead of doing farm by farm by farm, you know, that's the think tank purpose of the institute. really.
And I personally, and I don't know how but somehow in conjunction with the ag department, where the information will be fed, they've got to know, if they already run a program
Yeah.
to do fences.
Yeah.
And if this is the future, how are they going to incorporate the future into what they're already doing?
So it seems like when I come in, I gotta have a better handle on how that integrates. And that's what you gave, that's,
That's the program that kept guys out.
that's a crap program.
Yep.
okay. So I'll try to figure out how we can, and I've been working on the soil and water quality, you know, with the land trust and with the HCB, so I gotta think about how to do it.
You're forced, you know, they give, most of their grants are up to 15,000. But if they're giving out $15,000 grants and they're doing, and it's all to promote rotation grazing,
Yeah.
to get that environmental effect that you've got. I don't even know in the overall how much we're spending on it, but it would seem to me that
Well, so
this
then,
would all complement each other.
well, so then you could see how the agency could say, why don't we just do this in-house, what do we need to listen to before? Yeah, see that.
I don't know where they have the staff to do that in-house.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe
I agree with that.
maybe they'll be coming to you for money to do that instead of me, you know? And, but I think the question then is,
staff,
well,
they already
just-
got 100 and gone from 86.
well, what I'm trying to do is, so you're doing fencing for cattle in the agency rotational grazing. Are they doing sheep and goats
I don't
rotational
know
grazing?
what they're doing.
Yeah.
I can only speak to
Cattle, yeah. So, but they wouldn't be doing rights of way, you know?
No,
So that's what I'm
and
trying to do, to do it in an aggregated way. And so you got different animals, but good soil health and water quality come across. I mean, that's the function of the institute.
They
I'm
have,
not trying to compete with it, that's why I'm a
they
terrible
have
competitor. That's just-
state government
Not
has
trying to do
tons of contracts with nonprofits to do different things.
Okay, well, hopefully you guys will help me out on that front.
Get that figured
Yeah.
out and go from there.
Okay.
Well,
I always played better with partners than by myself. So I hope we can put this together. That would be great.
yeah, real,
Mr. Chair?
yeah.
Thanks. I hope I didn't keep you from